Hi everyone, Ryan here, Ion Capital Solutions. Hope you're doing well. So I want to talk to you about something that happens quite often to new business loan brokers in general, but also can happen to active, experienced business loan brokers. And when this happens, we get very frustrated and immediately start pointing fingers, usually, right? And that is deal declined after an approval. What the heck? I had an approval and all of a sudden the lender's pulling back. What the heck? I hate this lender. Now I need a new lender. I'm mad. I'm angry. I get it, right? We all, at the end of the day, we're salespeople. We want to earn a commission. What the heck, right? But at the end of the day, it's important to understand that we actually control our destiny, okay? Not somebody else if we follow the correct procedure and protocol. And it's likely if a deal falls apart on us down the line after an approval, there was something that we missed because we were either lackadaisical in our process or we were under the false impression that the lender's job is to qualify and underwrite the file, not ours. And so it's no wonder this kind of thing is happening. So, what can we do to prevent this? Right? Well, that's the topic of this video. Anyway, let's dig in. Okay, so I get it, right? We're real frustrated, but we have to remain grounded. We can look at it as, hey, what's going on here? They're pulling the ground right out from under me. Here I am doing the work and connecting the client and the lender, and there's an offer, and the client wants the offer, and everything's great. And then the lender just pulls it all right again, the rug right out from under me, right? Takes it all away, and it's really easy at that point to feel victimized, but it's more likely that you missed something. So let's evaluate. Now, default merchants typically get declined later in deals. And what I mean by that is if you conduct a survey with a client and you're not finding out up front, did they default on a loan recently or in the past? Or if they're not honest with you about that, it's going to come up at some point in underwriting. But there's signs of this for us as well. You should flat out ask the client, have you ever defaulted on a loan before? But you should also pay attention to the signs. If you're going through their bank statements, and you should be looking at their bank statements and evaluating them, and you see stop payments. In other words, you see this amount coming out daily, weekly, whatever it is. And all of a sudden it stops. Why did it stop? Did they pay the loan off? If they didn't, did they miss a payment? If they've missed a payment, how many have they missed? Have they defaulted? Right? 1 month shows payments, the next month doesn't, whatever it is. Find out. Ask the hard questions, right? Also, multiple owners. If you ask the client, well, I have about 25%. We have 3 other owners. There's 4 of us, whatever it is. Okay, I'm going to need to see at least 50% ownership or whatever the lender is going to require that you submit the deal to. And then it turns out that one of the owners has a prior default. Whether they're on the app or not, it's going to come up and say, oh, we don't feel comfortable doing this because there's lots of businesses out there that are default artists. So they constantly are changing out ownership. There's restaurants that will do this. That every year or two, they change the name, they change the banner at the top, they change the ownership, whatever it is, and they just keep doing it over and over again and defaulting on loan after loan after loan to keep the cash flow going. Things like that are not going to fly, and the lender's going to look out for things like that, okay? A client complaining about a former lender, right? It was unfair and they gave me a horrible offer and they were taking money out daily and I hated it and it was a miserable experience. Doesn't sound good. What happened at the end of that experience is what you should ask that client. Did you pay the loan off in time? Did you miss payments? Did you default? Are you tied up in any kind of battle with them, whatever it may be? Ask the harder questions. Don't just immediately say, oh, I'm a good guy. They're the bad guys. Go with me. I'm better, right? You might be setting yourself up for a fall, right? Or they say, oh, my bank account was hacked. There was fraud. They were going in there and taking money out. That's not fraud. Their account wasn't hacked. It's a daily ACH or a weekly ACH. They're taking that money out as agreed upon in the contract. That's how it works with a cash advance and a term loan, and that's the game, right? So they're trying to call it fraud, or it's not. So listen closely. Pay attention. Default merchants often get declined later in a deal. Okay? There's recently funded clients. In other words, Did you ask for a month to date from the client? They were interested in funding, you provided an offer, but did you get a month to date right up until the funding date? Because they may have just taken a loan yesterday from somebody else. And if they did, that's going to disrupt the offer that was provided to them by the lender you're representing. Or if you're trying to stack loans, something we'll talk about in a second, right? I guess I'll table that for a minute. But the month to date, always make sure you ask for that, okay? Because the reality is, before funds are dispersed, the lender's going to do a decision logic, which is a software that basically takes a look at the bank statements, or just log right into the bank account of the borrower and make sure that they haven't recently received funds, okay? And if they have, it's a dead deal. Also, to prevent clients, borrowers from stacking loans, or brokers taking multiple offers from different lenders and providing it to the client on the same day. That's known as stacking. It's against the law, okay? And the lenders do not approve that. A lender will calculate affordability of what you can afford, and that's it. But when you try and take multiple loans to increase that loan amount, the lender didn't agree to that. So the partner of the broker did not agree to that. The lender that the borrower is borrowing from did not agree to that. It's illegal, right? So understand, if the lender spots that, it's a dead deal, right? And that's going to happen the day of funding, okay? Working with other brokers. If you have a client that's working with other brokers and shopping the file around, they're likely going to provide an offer. Find out, are you working with others? Are you considering other offers? Are you considering taking multiple offers? I'm not going to stack if that's what you're looking to do. You need to have these hard questions. Otherwise, your deal might fall apart. Okay? Merchant interview, right? So everything looks good, but the lender wants to get on the phone with the client, ask some questions. They have some general questions about financials, whatever it may be. They may not be comfortable with the risk, or it's just standard procedure, whatever it is. If a client is unable to answer questions, that doesn't bode well for the client. That means that there may be something fishy going on that makes the lender nervous, right? Or if they're combative in their responses and defensive, that's not going to fly either, because that means the client's hiding something. If there's this indication of distress that the business isn't doing well, that's an indication that they're not going to pay the loan back on time. So the lender's going to be like, you know what? I don't want to do this. This doesn't sound right. And really that's what it comes down to. Is there too much risk for the lender? And that's usually what a merchant interview is about identifying the red flags and trying to home in and say, do we really want to do this? So this can die out. So you want to coach your borrower to a certain extent and just say, listen, be agreeable, keep it to yes answers. And notice how I didn't say yes and no. I just said the word yes. Okay. Keep it straightforward and simple. Obviously, unless they take serious issue with something, but that's going to mean they're not going to get funded. So they need to be agreeable and calm and relaxed, and that call needs to go well. Okay. And then there's deep financials. When a lender takes a look at bank statements and an application, that's not the end of it. That's the beginning of it. And if there's anything there that makes them feel uncomfortable, if we're talking about a considerable amount of money, they're going to want to take a look at a profit and loss with the corresponding balance sheet. They're going to want to take a look at tax returns, both personal and business. They're going to want to take a look at year-end and year-to-date financials, fiscal financials, whatever it is. They're going to want to look at credit card accounts if the client's doing more than 25% of their business in credit cards. They want to see these things to see if those numbers in the year add up and match the averages in the bank statements to determine whether or not this person can really pay back over the course of the term. If you're not looking at these things, if you don't understand these things, and then this happens late in the deal and it doesn't fund and you get frustrated and angry at the lender because the lender's too invasive or whatever it is the client's saying, and you adopt that personality, you're fighting an uphill losing battle, and you're not being honest with yourself. It's not how it works. You need to be an underwriter. You need to be a qualifier. That's how the business works. If you don't do these things, if you don't know these things, you're going to struggle. If you depend on a lender for these things, you're going to have deals fall apart on you. Their job is to mitigate risk, but get their money out the door. So if they're going to see a way to kill a deal, they're going to do it because they don't want to lose that money. They don't want a client to default, never pay back, whatever it is. It's private money. They can do whatever they want. And if the borrower doesn't agree to it, well, then they're not going to get funded. That's just the way it works. So the sooner we jump on that wagon and realize we're on the lender's side, not the client's side, when it comes to that process, and we adopt that process and make it our own so that we can get ahead of deals falling apart last minute like this, it makes a big difference in consistency of funding deals. Okay? So the reality is, and this is a great quote by Albert Einstein, if I had an hour to solve a problem and my life depended on it, I would use the first 55 minutes determining the proper question to ask. And it's just so true. What are you spending time on your calls? If the majority of your call is monologuing and telling the client all about yourself and what you can offer and how your products work, you're doing it wrong. The body of the call should be asking the right questions and identifying what kind of obstacles you're up against and making sure you're getting the correct answers very early on so you can kill the deal and move on to a better one, right? Or continue on with the client and know that you have a good deal, not just automatically assume that it is and try and get that ball rolling, because you're going to waste everybody's time, especially your own. It's not going to result in money. So what's the point, you know? And so it's very important to understand these things. Anyway, there's more to it than this. This is just really kind of homing in on general business loans, cash advances, term loans, things of that nature. Anything that has to do with cash flow and financials, you're going to have to look at things like this. But this can give you some indication as to why deals will fall apart and how to avoid that from happening. Okay, so with that being said, that's going to do it for this topic. Thanks so much for your time today. Good luck in your deals. I'll catch you in the next video.